2 years have elapsed since the world transformed. What was meant to be a simple outing, a day at the beach with my son Jasper, quickly took on a life of its own. Sebastian, my husband, was unable to join us. He did not. Work held the utmost significance in my life, and solitude had become my familiar companion. Yet, that day carried an unmistakable sense of difference, not just in the past, but also in the present. As the sun bathed us in its warmth, we unfurled the towels. The warmth of that day may have been excessive. I reclined, savoring a rare moment of tranquility away from the clamor of the world, and requested Jasper to assist me in applying sunscreen to my back. I hadn't given it much thought. I am a parent, my child. What would compel me to do that? Initially, it seemed as though he was merely lending a hand. I beheld it thereafter. He caressed me repeatedly, descending further and further. I allowed him to continue. What held me back from taking that step? You think you understand who you are part of the family. Yet, there are instances when a single moment can shatter everything. It happened for me on that day at the beach. Ever since that moment, I have felt a profound change within me. My marriage to Sebastian spanned more than 15 years. Those familiar with our lives would have described us as a perfect pair, residing in a charming home, raising delightful children, and enjoying a stable life. Only when you step inside do the issues reveal themselves. To experience hollowness is a sensation that eludes understanding unless one is immersed in it. Sebastian's work consumed his thoughts for years, filling his weekends, late nights, and even holidays. He accomplished it for our sake, I would often remind myself. His relentless effort and unwavering commitment were destined to pave the way for a brighter future for our family. Yet, that line of reasoning began to lose its clarity after some time. What is the value of a house that stands empty, untouched by its inhabitants? He was unable to perceive my presence any longer. He hardly glanced in my direction upon his arrival. He ceased inquiring about my well-being, desires, and necessities. Our conversations were brief, touching on matters such as bills, food, or the children. He held a deep affection for Jasper and his younger sister, Aloan. He resembled a specter, even in their presence. It exists, yet remains elusive. I would sit opposite him at the table, pondering whether he still perceived my presence. That morning is etched in my memory. Sebastian burst through the door just as I was busy in the kitchen. He retrieved his suitcase, pressed a gentle kiss on Aloan's head, and cast a fleeting glance in my direction. I apologize, Alara. Regrettably, I cannot attend today. He mentioned that an unexpected issue arose at work. I chose not to contest it. I merely nodded and forced down the lump in my throat, as I have always done. I reassured myself that everything was all right. Jasper and I could venture forth, just the two of us. At the age of 16, Jasper stood tall and slender. His father's brown eyes were mirrored in his own, yet his face bore a gentler expression. Upon revealing that it would merely be the two of us, he offered little in the way of response. With a mere shrug, he accepted the bags and trailed behind me to the car. He occupied the passenger seat, immersed in music, gazing out the window as countless teens often do. A smile crept onto my face as I observed him. He transformed so swiftly that I frequently feared a mere blink would cause me to lose him as well. While I navigated the road to the beach, my thoughts repeatedly drifted back to Sebastian, a familiar pattern for me. Memories of our shared moments flooded back to me. Evenings spent at the cinema, leisurely strolls, and spontaneous adventures, all crafted in the spirit of enjoyment. I reflected on the way he would caress me, the way his eyes sparkled at the sight of me. Years had passed since I experienced that feeling. I felt little to nothing. I felt utterly exhausted from the absence of recognition. Upon our arrival, Jasper assisted me in transporting our belongings to a serene location by the water's edge. He unfurled the umbrella as I spread the towels across the sand. For some inexplicable reason, I felt compelled to speak with him. Perhaps he was the sole presence in that moment. Perhaps what I truly required was simply a willing ear. Would you concur that being outdoors is quite pleasant? I endeavored to convey a sense of joy in my words. He swept his hair back and gave a nod. He replied, "Yeah, Mom, it is quite pleasant." As I reclined on the towel, the warmth of the sun enveloped my skin. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to do nothing, seeking to release the weight of the stress that had accumulated over the past few years, if only for a fleeting respite. In that moment, the thought of the sunscreen crossed my mind. I rose from my slumber and cast my gaze upon Jasper. "Would you be able to assist me in placing this on my back?" I inquired. "I find myself unable to reach it." He paused for a moment, contemplating, before finally reaching for the bottle I offered. I reclined once more, my back pressed against the towel, and endeavored to bide my time. His initial touch was gentle and deliberate, as if he feared causing me any pain. It brought a smile to my face, reminding me of the way his tiny fingers would wrap around mine as we navigated the street together in those carefree days of his youth. I advised him, "You might want to apply a bit more pressure." Yet, my voice remained soft. "Everything is fine." With each stroke of oil on my shoulders and back, his confidence grew, a palpable shift in his demeanor. The warmth and rhythm of his hands compelled me to shut my eyes. I allowed myself to savor it for a brief moment. It had been an eternity since I felt the warmth of another's touch. The weight of that thought was far more painful than I ought to have expressed. Then, his hands began to glide down, gently and deliberately tracing the curve of my back. I drew in a sharp breath, my lips parted in an attempt to voice my thoughts, yet silence enveloped me. Despite the whirlwind of thoughts swirling within me, I chose to remain silent. I reassured myself that all was well, that he was merely lending a hand and that my concerns were unfounded. I was aware that I wasn't, however. Once he set the towel aside, his hands lingered for a brief moment, suspended just above the edge. I sensed the weight of our shared uncertainty, yet I chose not to intervene. Instead, I uttered words I came to regret. "Everything is fine. That can also be touched." The statement lingered in the air, charged with a sense of danger, and the moment I uttered it, I realized that no one else dared to follow suit. He remained silent, and Jasper pressed on undeterred. I shut my eyes firmly, sensing his hands exploring places they ought not to have ventured. I wondered if he could hear the rapid thumping of my heart. I felt a surge of determination to rise and demand that he cease his actions. I did not, however. I found myself unable to do so. I took no action regarding it. I remained perplexed by the reasons behind it. Perhaps it was the sensation of profound solitude. It might have stemmed from a desire for acknowledgement, despite its moral ambiguity, or maybe I had simply lost interest. On that day at the beach, a part of me shattered, and nothing has felt the same since. I appreciate your company on this journey. I understand that this may be difficult to accept, and I truly value your willingness to listen. If you find this story captivating or believe it could resonate with someone you know, kindly consider liking and subscribing. It allows me to share more narratives of this kind and gives me a sense of companionship in my experiences. Let us proceed onward now. From that day forward, everything seemed transformed. The gaze Jasper cast upon me in the moments that followed, the events that transpired and the emotions they stirred within me were immutable, beyond my grasp to alter. It was neither fleeting nor insignificant. It persisted endlessly. As I gazed into his eyes, an elusive quality held my attention, leaving me unable to decipher the source of his peculiar expression. Yet, I found myself unable to turn my gaze elsewhere. Everything was concealed when we returned home that night, as if nothing had transpired. I fulfilled my responsibilities, prepared dinner, inquired about Jasper's school day, and folded clothes into the late hours of the night. Reflecting on the events of that afternoon, my hands trembled incessantly. The way his hands moved, the manner in which he lingered, and the tension I felt all conspired to keep him in my thoughts. I regretted my actions and resented the way he made me feel regarding my own son. Sebastian remained oblivious to any peculiarities. He consistently arrived home late, his face weary and his tie loosened. In a familiar gesture, he pressed his lips to my cheek, a lingering trace of the affection that once thrived there. "Has it been a lengthy day?" I inquired, seeking to spark a conversation. With a mere grunt and a nod, he made his way toward the living room, the customary course of action. His presence rendered me an afterthought, leaving me with the unsettling sensation of being unseen once more. As the night deepened, Sebastian's rhythmic snores filled the air beside me, while I remained wide awake, my gaze fixed on the ceiling above. Though the house lay in silence, my mind echoed with a cacophony of thoughts. My thoughts were consumed by Jasper constantly. Their hands, their eyes, and all that had transpired. I had to bring it to a close before it spiraled further, for I understood deep down that it was not right. Yet, a shadowed, more solitary aspect of my being clung to it, yearning for the caress, the acknowledgement, and the feeling of being noticed. As the days slipped away, Jasper remained silent, yet his silence resonated more profoundly than any spoken words could convey. He remained close to me. Rather, he appeared to remain in close proximity. He would observe me as I prepared meals, tidied up, or simply sat in solitude during the night. I allowed it transpired. I neither halted him nor restrained myself. The following weekend was sweltering, and the house seemed to blaze with heat. He had vanished once more, swept away by the demands of yet another unexpected shift. Once more, it was simply Jasper and I. I inquired if he was comfortable returning to the beach alone. I find myself questioning the reason I mentioned it. I once believed that the great outdoors would sharpen my thoughts. I may have sought to challenge myself and discover the limits of how much I could distance myself from everything. The drive was enveloped in silence. Jasper chose not to listen this time. He merely gazed out the window, his knee fidgeting restlessly. I attempted to express something, anything at all, yet the words eluded me, no matter the effort I exerted. Upon our arrival, the beach lay nearly deserted. The water shimmered in a vibrant blue hue, while the gentle breeze caressed my face with a refreshing touch. Once more, we unfurled the towels, and Jasper lent a hand in our preparations. This time, I found myself unable to ask him to apply sunscreen. I shut my eyes and reclined, pretending that all was well, yet I could still sense his gaze upon me. Without a doubt, he caught sight of me. As the afternoon wore on, the tension reached its breaking point. We opted for the beach showers to freshen up before our departure. In an effort to simply rid myself of the sand, I anticipated a swift resolution, yet an inexplicable occurrence unfolded that continues to elude my understanding. Jasper was the first to immerse himself beneath the cascading water, allowing it to flow down his back. I lingered in the shadows, observing him intently for a brief moment before finally deciding to intervene. I find myself questioning the impulse that led me to shed my clothes and stand beside him in the refreshing water, allowing the coolness to cascade over my skin. Jasper gazed at me, his expression one of astonishment. His expression was difficult to decipher. It might be astonishment, uncertainty, or perhaps something entirely different. He remained silent. After gazing into his eyes for a brief moment, I suggested, "You might want to remove your shorts as well. It is essential to rinse thoroughly." I find myself questioning the reason behind my words. I may have been attempting to prove to myself that I held the reins and could halt it all, or perhaps I was testing him, or gauging my own capabilities. He hesitated briefly, yet ultimately succumbed to the moment and removed his shorts. We stood alone as the rain cascaded around us. Gently, I inquired, "Could you assist me with my back?" while my back was turned to him. Indeed, he did. As he had done previously, he exercised caution with his touch. The tension between us was unmistakable. I froze in place as his hands found their way to my waist. The atmosphere was heavy, and the rush of the water drowned out all other sounds. Perhaps I could have found a way to depart. I possessed the strength to bring it to a close. Instead, I reclined against him, took his hands, and drew them up to my chest. He remained passive as I engaged in the struggle. The events that followed are difficult for me to articulate completely. I shall refrain from doing so. It unfolded as a whirlwind of yearning, isolation, and an ineffable essence that eludes my grasp. It lacked softness. It certainly wasn't sluggish either. It was intense, futile, and misguided in every possible sense. Though I yearned to cease, I found myself unable to do so. I had no desire to. Once it had concluded, we remained beneath the relentless cascade, the water washing away any visible remnants, yet leaving the truth untouched. He embraced me, cradled me in a way that had been absent from my life for years. I allowed him to proceed. Following that moment, silence enveloped us, leaving words unspoken between us. After a quiet stroll back to the car, we dried ourselves off, packed our belongings, and departed. A fleeting glance at Jasper revealed his crimson lips and the rigidity of his movements. I realized I had ruined it all. I was convinced that we had transgressed a boundary that can never be revisited. Yet, for the first time in years, a sense of vitality surged within me. The journey back in the car commenced in silence. The atmosphere inside the car felt dense and oppressive, as if the very air was pressing upon us with an unbearable weight. Though my gaze was fixed on the road and my hands firmly gripped the steering wheel, my thoughts continued to race uncontrollably. I could still sense him, the magnitude of what had just transpired, his hands and presence lingering in the air. My gaze was irresistibly drawn to him in the passenger seat. He remained motionless, gazing out the window. His flushed complexion and pursed lips revealed the depth of his distress. Suddenly, he broke the silence. "Mother," he spoke softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I averted my gaze from him. I refrained from speaking, yet his voice reached me clearly. "What is this? What actions did you take in that moment?" My heart raced with intensity. I paused, contemplating the idea of feigning ignorance, of shifting the conversation or simply brushing it aside. Yet, the truth was undeniable, especially in light of our shared experience. After drawing in a hesitant breath, I confessed to them, "I don't know." Indeed, it was true. Or as near to it as I could manage. Understanding what had transpired and the reasons behind it proved to be quite a challenge for me. All I understood was that everything had transformed. The stillness lingered even as we arrived in the driveway. The engine fell silent as I came to a halt, yet neither of us stirred from our places. Jasper then scrutinized me intently. A certain fear gripped me as I gazed into his eyes. It was neither shame, nor guilt, nor uncertainty. It was desire. "For how long have you been experiencing these feelings?" His question sent a chill down my spine. The very question lingered in my thoughts. As I gazed into his eyes, a profound awakening stirred within me. "I find myself uncertain," I whispered gently. "Perhaps I have spoken for longer than I intended." In the stillness of the night, we lingered, the unspoken words hanging heavily around us. "I am convinced" that marked the conclusion of it all. We intended to step inside, let it slip away, and behave as though it had never occurred. Yet, Jasper's mind was elsewhere. He has kissed me before. The door could be opened by me. Initially, it wavered uncertainly. He moved slowly, as though he feared I might retreat. I did not, however. I allowed him to kiss me, and in return, he kissed me back. At that moment, I completely lost my composure. It was the solitude of years without care, or perhaps the way Jasper gazed at me, a look I hadn't received in what felt like an eternity. I chose not to resist whatever it was that came my way. He drew me nearer right there outside our home, his hands gliding over me as if they were meant to be there. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, I experienced a surge of vitality. Essential. Noted. Nothing else held significance. I cannot recall the duration of our entrapment together. There, Ultimately, we decided to step inside. I can hardly recall the journey to the door, only the sensation of his hand against mine and the palpable tension that hung in the air between us. Upon entering, the situation deteriorated further. It felt as though we had been restraining ourselves for an eternity, and at last, we were free to release it all. The dam had given way. Subsequently, the days turned overcast. Jasper had a way of being near me, often seeking opportunities to brush against me or meet my gaze when we were alone. I repeatedly urged myself to break free from this cycle, yet each time my gaze fell upon him, I was met with the same void that echoed within me. We were reflections of one another, echoing each other's longing, and I found myself unable to refuse. I had no desire to. As I reclined in bed beside Sebastian, my gaze drifted to the ceiling, attuned to the rhythm of his steady breathing. My mind was consumed by thoughts of Jasper. His touch awakened a sense of vitality within me once more. Even though my guilt coiled within me like a serpent, it wasn't enough to deter my resolve. I was acutely aware of its wrongness, of the inevitable unraveling that awaited, yet I found myself ensnared by its irresistible allure. The situation between us deteriorated until it ultimately came to a halt. One evening, I found myself at the kitchen sink, washing dishes to distract myself from the swirling thoughts in my mind, as Sebastian toiled away late and Aloan lay peacefully asleep. Jasper lingered in my shadow. He regarded me with the same gaze he had at the beach when I turned around. In a gentle tone, I cautioned Jasper, "Be careful." He chose not to flee, however. He drew near enough for me to sense the warmth of his breath against my skin. She expressed, "Mom, you occupy my thoughts constantly." I felt a chill wash over me. My heart raced, pounding against my chest as if it might explode from the intensity of the moment. I instructed him to wait, retreat to his room, and grant me some solitude. I ought to have refrained from saying that, yet I did so anyway. I find myself unable to cease. That was the moment everything fell apart. Once again, Jasper pressed his lips to mine. This moment feels more challenging, a necessity now more than ever. I returned his kiss. I found no disturbance in the fact that it was incorrect. I lost sight of Sebastian, Aloan, and the world we had crafted together. All that mattered was Jasper, my boy, the sole individual in years who made me feel valued. Since that day at the beach, nothing has returned to its former state. I doubt it will ever happen. Jasper and I have crossed a line that cannot be undone. The weight of shame lingers, a constant ache that cuts deeply, yet it does not deter me. That is what fills me with the greatest fear. Each day, I gaze at Sebastian and Aloan, pondering how they remain oblivious to it all. They remain oblivious to the fractures within our family. They may be preoccupied with their own lives. Perhaps I've simply become more adept at concealing it in the present moment. I am aware that this is fleeting, however. Secrets have a way of revealing themselves. When the time comes, things will inevitably fall apart. I have made attempts to bring it to a close. I convinced myself it was misguided. Both Jasper and I are worthy of something greater. Yet, I find myself adrift each time his fingers brush against my skin or his gaze meets mine, as if I am the sole focus of his world. For the first time in years, I feel truly alive because of him. Maybe even forever? That is the reality I must confront. This is damaged, and I find myself at a loss for how to repair it. I find myself questioning my ability to accomplish this task. This is precisely why I am sharing this tale. I wish for someone to have the knowledge. The undeniable reality. A notion that has eluded my contemplation. I urgently seek assistance to escape this predicament before time runs out. I would appreciate hearing from you if you can offer any assistance or if you know someone who has experienced a similar situation. Consider this a cautionary note. Solitude can lead you to realms you never imagined existed. Do not allow it to consume your existence as it once did with me. Do not delay your awareness until chaos reigns to grasp the situation at hand. Once you cross that line, there is no turning back. I appreciate your willingness to listen. Please share your thoughts at your convenience. If this video resonated with you, give it a like and follow for more content. I seek the comfort of companionship, a sense that I am not alone in this journey. Sometimes, the deepest betrayals are those we inflict upon ourselves. We all engage in these behaviors towards ourselves.